Immigration Minister Alex Hawke has issued a warning to several councils considering cancelling Australia Day events. Mr Hawke says the National Day should not be defined by past mistakes. Some councils are scaling back Australia Day festivities because of surging COVID cases. But Mr Hawke says it's not the role of councils to entertain extreme views. Invasion Day rallies are expected across all major capital cities except Melbourne. Prime Minister Scott Morrison's account on Chinese social media site WeChat has been taken over and then rebranded without the government's consent. Earlier this month, the Prime Minister's account was renamed Australian Chinese New Life, and the account description changed to provide life information for overseas Chinese in Australia. Scott Morrison had previously used WeChat to communicate government announcements to his 76,000 followers. National security experts are warning the move is a serious escalation of censorship on the platform by the Chinese Communist Party. Joining me live now is the Chair of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security, James Paterson. Senator, good to see you this morning. So are we calling this a hack?
Good morning, Peter. Well, it's not clear quite how the Prime Minister lost control of his account, but it's clear that WeChat has taken no steps at all, despite requests from the government to restore control of the account. So it appears a pretty clear intention that they want to censor the Prime Minister and prevent him from reaching the Australian Chinese community on the most popular and widely used means, which is WeChat. Quite alarmingly, though, they've left the opposition leader's account, Anthony Albanese's account, untouched. And it appears to me to be a transparent attempt to interfere in our democracy in no less than an election year.
So a government order, this is all about?
Well, WeChat is owned by Tencent, which is probably one of the most closely controlled, theoretically private companies in China. It censors the platform all around the world. It uses the platform to surveil and monitor the overseas Chinese community, as is very clearly China's government action, in my view.
How many of our politicians have WeChat accounts?
Look, a relatively small number are active on the platform, Peter, and I think that's appropriate given that it is a surveillance and monitoring platform of overseas Chinese. And I think now that they're attempting to make a partisan intervention by blocking one side of politics from getting out a message on there and allowing the other side on there, it's really incumbent on all politicians to get off the platform. I think we should have a voluntary boycott off the platform. And I'm calling on the Leader of the Opposition in particular, Anthony Albanese, to show some leadership here. He shouldn't allow a foreign government to dictate the terms of our public debate. He shouldn't allow a foreign government to decide how a Prime Minister can speak to his own people. So
it's a Chinese account. I'm just not really across WeChat and how it all works. It has to be functioned in China, right? So that's where it's based. If Scott Morrison's got an account, it has to be run in China.
WeChat effectively divides itself in two. It has a domestic version of the app and an international version of the app, and the international version is catered for international Chinese communities. The Prime Minister's on the latter half, but yes, he used an agent to post on it because of the terms and conditions of the app. That agent started to have difficulty posting to the Prime Minister's account in the middle of last year and repeatedly tried to regain access to the account and failed. And the government has directly appealed to WeChat to ask them to restore access, and no response has been given to the government, which seems pretty clear that WeChat has no intention of allowing the Prime Minister to continue to post.
Wow, so these are the issues running for 6 months now.
That's right, and interestingly, 6 months ago was when the Prime Minister was in the United Kingdom for the G7, and you might remember media reporting at the time that the Prime Minister took with him the list of 14 demands handed by the Chinese embassy to an Australian journalist the previous year. And he used that list to talk to Joe Biden and Boris Johnson and Shinzo Abe and Angela Merkel and other world leaders about the dangers of becoming overexposed to China and having leverage of China over you. And it wouldn't be at all surprising if those two events were connected.
Just onto another issue, and that's the Chinese tennis player Peng Shuai. Tennis Australia says it is a priority. They do have concerns about Peng Shuai, but even so, people still aren't allowed to protest her alleged disappearance. What do you make of that story?
Frankly, I'm pretty cynical about the sincerity of Tennis Australia. On the one hand, they say that their primary concern is Peng Shuai's welfare. On the other hand, they censor tennis goers who are wearing T-shirts appealing for her safety and well-being. That's total hypocrisy in my view and flies in the face of their commitment to her welfare. they've also said that this is political. Well, there's nothing political about a sexual assault allegation. It's a criminal matter and it should be investigated as such, and her welfare should be guaranteed. And Tennis Australia should not be censoring, on behalf of the Chinese government or anyone else, people who are concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, they say you can't have political messages and you can't have commercial messages, but there's commercial messaging all over the Open, right?
That's right. The Australian Open wouldn't exist if it wasn't for commercial messaging.
Exactly.
And of course, it's publicly known that many of those major sponsors are Chinese companies. I hope that is not a consideration in Tennis Australia. I hope they are not fearful of the consequences of that sponsorship, and I hope that's not the reason why they've censored these activists. I think they should allow any Australian who turns up to the Australian Open over the next few days to wear a T-shirt saying "Free Peng Shui," because she should be free.
Agree. James Paterson, good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Peter.
Now bring him